SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome into Sports Talk, Sports Talk Media Network for the next 2 hours. Take your minds off whatever it is that's bothering you today. If there's something else on your mind besides sports, well, you know what? Shift gears and join us here for the best 2 hours of sports coverage in South Carolina. Phil Kornblut and Pat Daniel from the Dave and Buster's studio here in downtown Columbia. No Chris Bergen tonight. He's got high school football. Yeah, it's strange. We got a bunch of high school football across the state tonight. We got so much that David Shelton's going to join us at about 6:20 to preview these games coming up tonight and tomorrow. Of course, the schedule being changed up because of the weather. And so David will touch on some of the top games tonight and tomorrow night, and maybe a little bit into Friday, whatever's left for Friday. As we get into region play now, October is here. We get into region play, so the games really matter. And positioning for the postseason begins now with these games tonight and Thursday, and again, whatever's left on Friday. We've got a jammed up show for you. Of course, at 6:35, we'll have Chalk Talk with Ellis Johnson and Chuck Reedy. Mike Morgan on the move a little bit after 7 o'clock. Also, I was over at USC today. There was no football today with the game coming up tomorrow. But Dawn Staley and her defending national champion USC women's basketball team open practice today, official practice today. And, I mean, my goodness, they should win another national championship. I mean, easier said than done. It's never easy to win a championship, but they should be really, 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 really good once again with the returning players and the outstanding talent that she has added to the team. But, of course, with Dawn Staley, it's not always about basketball. Things get off the track sometime onto other issues. I mean, she is an individual who at her stage in life and her position carries a bully stick. And I mean that in a positive way. She has a bully pulpit by being the best women's basketball coach going in the country right now, with the best program going in the country. And when she speaks out on issues, I mean, it makes news and people pay attention and react to it, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. And today she was asked about her support for Brittany Griner. And she was also asked about the issue with BYU and the cancellation of that series and what she knew from her own investigation. Did she share any of that with BYU, and just why she took the position that she took? And we're going to play that part for you, the part where she talks about Griner and she talks about BYU. We'll have that for you coming up. Now, today, of course, it wouldn't be the day before a USC football game if there weren't news on the women's basketball team. It seems like every time they have a football game, something's going on with women's basketball to make news. Well, first, they kind of buried this in the story. They didn't put out a separate announcement that they had filled that void with BYU. They just added this into their story about their games on television and tip times, and the SEC, I guess, announcing that. But East Tennessee State is the team that will open the season against South Carolina 8:30 on November 7th, I think it is. November 7th in Columbia. They'll honor the national champions and raise the banner and all that kind of stuff. But East Tennessee State's the team that'll be replacing BYU on the schedule. Then this afternoon, a story came out from a Salt Lake City television station, which reported that USC owes BYU $100,000 for canceling the two-game series. The state newspaper got a statement from the university denying that, saying that the contract had never been enacted and that they don't owe BYU a thing. So there's that angle to this whole story as well. Leave it up to the women's basketball to take away from the upcoming football game tomorrow night between South Carolina and South Carolina State. The Gamecocks are huge favorites. I hope you heard Buddy Pugh on our show last night. He was fantastic. And you know what? I mean, he's optimistic. They can come in and play the Gamecocks, make it a decent ball game. They do have some talent on that South Carolina State team. They have a terrific quarterback, one in particular receiver, and Shaq Davis that the Gamecocks are going to have to be aware of. But if you're South Carolina, you just want to build on what you did against Charlotte, play good, clean, solid football. Don't mess around. You should put South Carolina State away by midway in the third quarter. You get your backups in there, let your Luke Doty's play, and your other quarterbacks, get them some experience, stay healthy, get the walking wounded healthy, and then get ready for Kentucky the following week in Lexington. Now, all of a sudden, Kentucky's been so good this year, but Northern Iowa gave them a pretty good game this past Saturday. I think the final spread was only 8 points or something like that. And Kentucky didn't run the ball the way Kentucky normally runs the ball against Northern Iowa. So, if you're South Carolina and you see that, the other perplexing thing to me, and I'm still catching up on things from being off on Monday and setting me a day behind. This is actually my Tuesday, though it's actually Wednesday, as you know. But how in the world did Kent score 22 on Georgia? I mean, I know they didn't put up a bunch of yards and all that, and they had an interception they converted to a touchdown, but still, nobody has scored on Georgia. And here comes little old Kent into Athens, and they put 22 on the board against the Bulldogs. I mean, they must have been sleeping much of that game, though they did still win handily. All right, so we have got a Dino show for you tonight. Lots of great stuff. I know in some cases you might not be able to hear us over the airwaves. It's too late if you're not listening to us over the airwaves to hear what I'm about to tell you, but you can always get us on our various feeds. We have, of course, our audio feed, which is through our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Just go to the website, click on the link to listen to the Sports Talk feed, and you can hear us loud and clearly that way. And our streams on Twitter, excellent stream there, and YouTube and Facebook. So feel free to join us that way if you're not able to get us over the airwaves tonight. Our phone number, 888-898-2525. That's the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number here on Sports Talk. If you want to join us with a phone call, a question, an observation, a comment, more than happy to hear what you have to say tonight as well. But we are a loaded up show tonight and a lot of things to bring your way, along with David Shelton talking about high school football tonight. We are going to have Mike Morgan on the move. Also, Chennis Berry, head football coach at Benedict, scheduled to be with us tonight, 7:35. I mentioned Chalk Talk with Chuck Reedy and with Ellis Johnson. The Dawn Staley comments as well. Recruiting for you, too. So we've got a lot to unpack for you tonight here on Sports Talk. So let's go ahead and hit our break. When we come back, we will get to David Shelton, catch up on some of the top high school football games across the state tonight as teams have moved up their games to tonight and to Thursday. The bad boy, Alan Smothers, telling me that Horry County is called off all school on Friday, which means no games down there on Friday. And they would have to play, I guess, maybe Sunday or Monday is when they'd have to reschedule most of those games if they haven't already been moved up to Wednesday or Thursday. So a lot of changes to things because of Ian coming across the state of Florida, hitting the Tampa-St. Pete area with about 155-mile-an-hour winds. Cat 5, they're calling it. Man, heavy Cat 4 perhaps could reach Cat 5. Hopefully, as it moves across Florida, it will weaken because it's not going over any kind of warm water. It will weaken as it makes its way across the border into Georgia. It's supposed to go east of Atlanta, heading towards Augusta, and then basically kind of up I-20. Of course, it'll get held up on I-20 because of construction in Georgia. Boom, boom. That's a joke. And maybe it'll slow it down before it gets to South Carolina and does any damage here. We'll hit the break. Dial up David Shelton in just a moment.
When your day calls for some winning, why not watch your favorite football team at Dave & Buster's? We've got massive HD TVs and hundreds of the hottest new games. Sip from our chef-crafted cocktail menu with exclusive drinks such as the Strawberry Watermelon Margarita or Dangerous Waters. Cheer on the team with Cantina Nachos or wings featuring one of our 12 wings flavors. When your day calls for some winning, it's time for Dave & Buster's, where you can watch the games and play the games. Locations in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with a family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at sccattle.org. Beef, it's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff Program.
In Columbia, South Carolina, game days are our specialty. Whether you're watching the game from inside the stadium or from the big screen at your favorite local spot, the energy remains the same. Craft the perfect fall Saturday in a city where there is plenty of action on and off the field. From tubing and kayaking to Soda City to rooftop restaurants and plenty barbecue. We're ready when you are. Plan your weekend at experiencecolumbiasc.com.
I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. People often ask me, when should I start saving for college? And I always tell them, start today. September is College Savings Month, a great time to start saving for your child's education. Future Scholar makes it easy to open and manage your account online, and the plan offers options and benefits you won't find with a regular savings or investment account. So make this the month you go to futurescholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. Futurescholar.com.
You were always more than my mom. You were my role model, my best friend, and biggest supporter. You filled my days with unconditional love. And you also prepared for the day when you couldn't be here. Because of the woman you were back then, I'm able to be the woman I am now. Your planning made this moment possible.
Set your family up for life. Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance. Your friends for life.
Life insurance isn't for you. It's for those you love the most. For a complete insurance review, call Buddy Bridges in Lawrence County at 864-923-2174, serving Lawrence, Clinton, and the shores of Lake Greenwood.
Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Jackson, Mississippi. Not licensed to do business in all 50 states.
Thank you. Thank you for world-traveling rocket scientists, for tires bigger than your grandma's house, for 3D printing research, for artists in residency. Thank you for all the things that take us to the next level. Thank you for playing the lottery, for funding scholarships, for funding grants, for funding innovation in this state. Thank you. The South Carolina Education Lottery. When you play, we all win.
Our phone number, 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. And since 2002, more than $829 million in lottery proceeds have been used to fund lottery tuition assistance for students attending technical colleges in South Carolina. Learn more about the lottery's impact at sceducationlottery.com/education wins. Playing for fun is a win for education. David Shelton coming up in just a moment. I can't utter the words Dawn Staley on this program without getting a call from Hank. Hank, welcome into Sports Talk.
Good afternoon, Corn. Don't blame the girls for being a famous program for always saying that they upstage football.
That's right.
They can't help who they are. They can't help the success they have. They do their thing.
Yeah.
You forgot to mention that there was just a deal brokered that every girl on that team will make $25,000 through the Garnet Trust this year.
No. They'll have the opportunity to make $25,000.
Well, there was a little bit more in that story that was by the folks who invested in it to do it. So they're going to basically from that portion they're going to make the 25. You say opportunity, but I think the investors put out a little tweet about it that want to be involved with it, so it'll happen. But I do want to give something for the conjugation. I saw the state newspaper's article, and one of the things that state newspaper also included was through a Freedom of Information Act, they got a copy of both contracts that were proposed for that game, and one was not signed by either school, and the other one had only been signed by South Carolina. BYU had yet to sign it, so the other contract they got basically is that you didn't have a contract until BYU finally signed it, which they hadn't done by the time Don canceled the game. And a comprehension of what she's saying is the same thing that if you look up and read the stories from Duke. The Duke player never retracted what you said you heard, and even after BYU came out with their little investigation statement, Duke came back out and said, based on what they did and they've learned, that they stand by their player and what you said and what happened. And so you just have to go into that mode of, how many times have you ever seen an athletic department? We can't say which is right or wrong because we don't get to see the facts. But I know this much about the self-reporting of violations in athletics across the nation. I've never seen an athletic department, when they do their investigation, self-report a level 1 violation. I see the cookie, too much cream on the cookie.
Well, then why should we believe the investigation that South Carolina did when the Missouri team made claims against them? Why should we believe that investigation?
One of the things with that investigation, though, if you go back and remember and really read up on the girls' basketball, was Ray Tanner brought in an outside firm to look at everything that went on. It wasn't just South Carolina police. He brought in an outside firm and invited the SEC to come in and look at that.
I just don't think you're being fair. Okay, if you're going to accept what South Carolina did, BYU, I mean, they're not going to be that stupid. They're not going to be that stupid with a big accusation of this nature that made national news to conduct an investigation and then try and mislead everybody. I mean, they're just cutting their own throat. And they said they interviewed over 50 people, including members of the Duke volleyball team and administration. They reviewed every piece of video, audio available. They interviewed security. They interviewed police officers. They interviewed people in the stands. I mean, I'm just saying, I wasn't there. I'm just going by what I read. And just because the young lady hasn't retracted her accusations doesn't make her accusations right. That's a pretty weak argument to hang your hat on when you've got on the other side all this evidence that does not corroborate anything that she's claiming.
But Corin, this is what I'll say to you though. And I read every article that BYU put out. BYU never put out an article that said it did not, whatever the young lady said she might have heard or didn't happen. BYU put out an article that stated the person that was fingered.
No.
And then they said that they couldn't substantiate it. There's plenty of crimes. There's plenty of open crimes right now that people can't substantiate with evidence. But it still didn't mean the crime didn't happen.
All right,
they haven't caught the culprit.
I got to go to David, but they did. And thank you for the phone call. We can pick back up on this later. But the reporting by the Salt Lake newspaper citing the BYU officials in the investigation there said that they reviewed the video and the audio. I mean, I don't know how else you want them to word it. They said they can't find any evidence supporting the accusations, which means they don't see anything on video. They don't hear anything on audio. If something doesn't happen and you can't find that it did happen, how can you say it happened? That's like if a tree falls in the woods and you don't see it or hear it, did it really fall? I mean, I know it's now a he said, she said sort of thing. And Dawn Staley believes the girl at Duke. And of course, the Duke program is going to support their people. BYU did their investigation and declared otherwise. When South Carolina had that issue with Missouri, nobody had any trouble around here accepting South Carolina's findings that it was false. And it was actually backed up because of legal action that Dawn Staley took, and she got a settlement out of it. So what does David Shelton think about all this? I know he is just tied up with women's basketball. David Shelton of the High School Sports Report, looking forward to a dry, maybe breezy Wednesday night of high school football. David, welcome in.
Hey, that's an interesting. I just wonder, has Hank ever said anything negative against the University of South Carolina or Dawn Staley?
Oh, no. Well, not against Dawn. A time or two he's cracked on the football program.
I'm thinking Dawn Staley's investigation Powers, she might find the real OJ killer. But I was listening to that whole conversation, and I was just like, gee, Hank. Come on, brother. Let's be a little bit unbiased. But anyway,
well,
we do have
in Dawn's case. Let me just say this. I mean, she's based on what she said today. She's kind of banking her beliefs on the young lady, and the fact that the young lady has made the accusations and hasn't retracted. That's enough for her. Even though BYU did an investigation and found no corroborating evidence, that's good enough for her. She takes the side of the girl and not the side of BYU here, obviously. She said, well, we'll play it later, but she said
she's going to do that anyway.
If the young lady ever apologizes for misleading people and retracts, then she'll retract. So that's what she's tying herself to. Okay. First of all, high school teams just played on Friday. Now you're asking them to play again on Wednesday. What kind of games are we going to see tonight?
You'll see normal football games. I mean, it's not that big a deal, really. I mean, this would be the last day of practice, but it would be a no-contact practice. Tomorrow would be a walkthrough. They play Friday. The biggest adjustment is, the varying game times. They're playing a little earlier, so your pregame routine's different. You're getting on a bus and traveling on a Wednesday rather than a Friday, and you got to go to school in the morning. Well, in some cases there'll be no school, but it's a little different. But I mean, be honest. In South Carolina, we've been through this about every year for the last 2 decades. So it's really not a big deal. I think it's just as easy to do this as it is to push this game back to Monday and then go and play next Friday, Friday. So, I mean, either way, that's what you're going to have to do because you got to get these games in now. They're region games. So it's nothing we haven't been through. I'm going to the Hanahan-Woodland game. They're both undefeated. I don't suspect this is going to be a worse game just because they're playing, 48 hours earlier.
All right, hit us up with a couple of the top matchups tonight that you see.
I think the West Florence Myrtle Beach game, the South Florence Hartsville game, they're right there, all in that same region. That's a pretty big night. Especially when you look at what West Florence is coming off of with that win over Burns, and then going to Myrtle Beach. It's going to be a big game. I think Burns and Spartanburg are they playing tonight or tomorrow night?
I've got them down for. I just saw them cross my list here. I think they're playing tomorrow night.
I think it's Thursday. I think it's Thursday.
Yeah.
I think most of the games in the upstate are Thursday, and most of the games down this way are going to be tonight because the storm will probably come in tomorrow night, late tomorrow night. It'd be pretty messy in terms of rain, but. I don't have the list of games in front of me, and I can't remember who plays tonight and who plays tomorrow. But, it is region play in most of the regions, so that makes it, pretty important football.
Absolutely. How about this Loris and Dillon game coming up tonight? That might be one of the best matchups of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Both teams are undefeated. Loris is having, a season for the ages, so to speak. And again, it's a region game, and this is the region opener. So the winner of this game is really going to be in great shape because they're clearly the two best teams in that region.
Yeah. And we've got in Columbia, you've got Ridgeview and White Knoll. No, River Bluff and White Knoll coming up, and that's going to be a great matchup.
Absolutely. White Knoll is having a great season. River Bluff is also having a great season, coming off a loss, but the winner of this game, again, a region game. So when you get the top 4 in the region make the playoffs, you look who else is in that region, and one of these two teams, or maybe both of them, will be 3-4. So, but it'll have a bearing on who makes the playoffs and where they're seated at the end of the regular season.
I'll tell you what, we'll pick it back up tomorrow night and talk about some of the night's games and how they turned out in the big games tomorrow, sir.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, David. David Shelton, back in a moment.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Staying dry but windy with a low of 54. Tomorrow, cloudy and breezy with a high of 72. The bad weather arrives on Friday with a total rainout. Gusty winds and a chance for severe weather. The conditions from the hurricane brings heavy rain on Saturday and into Sunday. A very wet 3-day period. Weekend highs in the low 70s. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today at any of their 14 locations or at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting Hurricane Ian made landfall Wednesday in southwest Florida. Barely an hour after the massive storm trudged ashore, a coastal sheriff's office reported that it was already getting a significant number of calls from people trapped in homes. The hurricane center struck near Cayo Costa, a protected barrier island just west of heavily populated Fort Myers. Russian President Vladimir Putin warns that he won't hesitate to use nuclear weapons to ward off Ukraine's attempt to reclaim control of Moscow-occupied areas that the Kremlin's about to annex. While the West dismisses that as a scare tactic, a top Putin lieutenant upped the ante by boldly saying the U.S. and its NATO allies wouldn't dare strike Russia, even if it used nuclear weapons in Ukraine. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 548 points. More on these stories at srnnews.com.
If you're an avid shooter or you're new to shooting, Shooter's Choice is your paradise. A firearms specialty store with all types of firearms, ammunition, accessories, AR platform rifles, shotguns, hunting rifles, and much more. Shooter's Choice has the largest and best selection of firearms in the area. Shooter's Choice is the oldest, the most professional firearms dealer in the Midlands. They've served us for more than 30 years. Family-owned, they've never let themselves lose that hometown feel. You go into Shooter's Choice, you'll get experts who hunt and shoot. It's not like some big box store. Their staff has decades of experience. You just won't get this anywhere else. From the classics to the newest cutting-edge products anywhere in the firearms world, they buy, sell, and trade firearms. They have an indoor firing range for handguns and hunting rifles. If you don't want to spend the gas money, hop on ShootersChoiceSC.com and shop online 24/7. Whatever you choose, Shooter's Choice will make it easy on you. In West Columbia at 944 Sunset Boulevard or online, ShootersChoiceSC.com. Make it your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Gas prices, grocery prices, inflation has hit us all, and it's caused the Fed to raise interest rates. As a result, after historically low mortgage rates for what seemed like forever, interest rates for a mortgage have jumped in recent months. Fran Halloran here. Let me make something clear to you. Mortgage rates are rising. They may continue to rise as the Fed tries to get a grip on inflation. What hasn't changed is the incredible customer service you'll get from Greg McCoy and Simplified Mortgage Solutions. Greg can't control interest rates. He can, however, control fees. With rates on the rise, now more than ever, you need to know you're getting the very best deal. Greg will make sure of that. He's more than just a mortgage guy. Greg McCoy is your trusted advisor. You might be surprised to learn how much Simplified Mortgage and Greg McCoy can do to help you with your biggest financial investment. Not sure? Have questions? Give Greg a call at Simplified Mortgage, 803-722-6044, or find him online at simplifiedmortgagesc.com. Greg McCoy, NMLS 119871.
You know what? I get asked every now and then, Kev, when you say my guy, do you really have a my guy at Palmetto Exterminators? Well, I really do. Ron Byers is my guy. Do you realize I've been a customer of Palmetto Exterminators for 20 years this summer? That's over the course of 3 homes, longer than my kids have been around. I'm loyal to Palmetto Exterminators for several reasons. First, they do a phenomenal job with pest control for a very fair price. It's just not a concern around my home. They take care of everything from regular visits to termite inspection, mosquito care. This is a company that's been around for more than 60 years serving the Midlands. When they come around, they're clean, they're courteous, and they're on time. Look, it's not just me. When it comes to things like those pesky mosquitoes, Palmetto Exterminators voted best of Columbia in Columbia Metropolitan for their mosquito control. I could have told you that before anyone even voted. What else can you possibly need from your pest control company? If you're looking for someone to help you, look no further than my guy, Ron Byers, Palmetto Exterminators. Online, it's palmettoexterminators.net, or call them 254-5833, 254-5833.
Well, there's a lot of hot air coming our way in the form of Hurricane Ian. We bring you hot air right now. Hurricane Chuck, Hurricane Ellis, Chalk Talk here on Sports Talk. Two of the great football minds of all time. Chuck Reedy, Ground Chuck. Ellis Johnson doesn't have a good nickname. Coach Ellis, we need a good nickname based on your coaching career.
I've got a lot from my youth. I don't know if I have any from my coaching career.
What's a good one from your youth?
Come on, Phil. I mean, you give yours and I'll give mine. Okay, how about that?
Let's see. I was known as, well, I can't really say it over the air what I was known as. So, okay, we'll keep that to ourselves. Good to have the two of you with us. Let's begin with Clemson and Wake Forest. And Ellis, the Tiger secondary, they had issues up there in Winston-Salem. I mean, they had injuries and they were playing some backup guys. And, boy, they had a difficult time. And I guess if the frontline guys aren't back this Saturday against NC State, it could be a big problem for them. What did you see was going on in the secondary?
Well, I feel they left those guys on an island out there a lot. And sometimes you have to do that with the system that Wake Forest runs. We saw it at Kansas State several years ago when I was at Auburn. It is very difficult. You have to put people in the box to stop that slow mesh. And when you do, you leave your corners out there. Once they were exposed, I thought they waited a little too long to get into some too high safeties and start mixing things. But the young cornerbacks obviously were struggling. And, I mean, Lord, they gave up more yards in pass interferences almost than they did in completed passes. And it was at the halftime, the statistics look pretty good. But then you have to go back and look, and there was that flashing red light. We can't match up with these two big wideouts. And so I don't know if they wait a little too long. You don't want to just get out of it because then you tell your kids, I don't trust you. But the other thing that I really feel like, I didn't see Clemson's front show up until late in the game, not on a consistent basis. And if that's where all those big-time NFL players are, they all got those wideout numbers on. They're supposed to be great athletes for big kids. They got to start dominating.
Mm-hmm.
I would have played Wake Forest with 6 people in the box and played too high from the get-go if I had those kids up front. But right, I don't think they really were effective until late in the game.
Yeah. What about Uiagalelei this time around, Chuck? I mean, maybe the Notre Dame game up there a couple of years ago, I think maybe that was a just one of those nights for him. Kind of settled back down to earth last year, but I really thought the Wake Forest game, he looked in complete control of the offense, of himself, and really did what he wanted to do with his arm and his legs.
Yeah, he's really playing with a lot of confidence right now, and he played as well as probably as well as he can play. He made throws. I tell you, if he has time, he can throw the football. There's no question about that. I was surprised that Wake Forest, didn't pressure him more. When he and it's like any quarterback, when he has pressure is when he struggles. But if he's got time, and if people are going to rush 3 or rush 4 and let him sit back there all day like they did, I mean they had him several times. Wake had him, third and goal, long yardage, and even the. At the end of the, in the overtime, I mean, what's it, 3rd down and 8 or 9, and they let him stand back there all day. I mean, and if they do that, those 2 big tight ends, and they're going to get open, and he can throw the ball if he's got time. But no, he was very effective. His running is deceiving. I mean, it's not pretty, but he manages to make people miss, and he's always, he's falling forward, and he made some big plays with his feet.
The play he made, I think it was on the 2-point conversion pass, where he shook off a couple of guys. I mean, that just tells you the strength that he has and the ability to stay focused on a target, and the arm strength was not affected by those guys pounding on him.
No, well, he had guys hanging on him. I mean, every guys on his legs. And he still has the wherewithal to to throw the ball, and and probably that 2-point conversion might have been the game. But no, I mean, he's a big old strong guy. I mean, and you got to get him down. I mean, if you don't, he can make plays.
What'd you think of Wake Forest and Hartman and 6 touchdown passes and those receivers he's got?
Yeah, well, very impressive. I mean, totally different from a year ago. And and Ellis nailed it. Now last year, Clemson's front dominated the game. I mean, I think we mentioned this last week. They had 8 sacks or whatever. I don't think they had but a couple the other day. I mean, so he had time to make throws, and and he even made some one really big play with his feet. But no, the guy was very impressive. I'm like Ellis. I mean, until they went to the high safeties, I mean, I don't think Clemson would have stopped them. And then when they did that, and then Wake Forest, was running the ball fairly effectively, but they weren't going to win the football game running the football.
Yeah, Ellis. I mean, the three of us obviously understand totally what you're talking about, the impact of the high safeties. But for the members of the audience who don't get it like the three of us do, we 3 coordinators. What is the effect of the high safety you're talking about in that situation?
Well, the basic concept, if you load the box, you have to have so many people in the box, and you don't have enough to help the corners. When you go to 2 high safeties, technically, either cover 2, even quarters, it takes a little pressure off the corners because there's probably, in most routes, there's over-the-top help. So that allows the corners not to have to play these one-on-one 9 routes. And when you're playing them with that particular play action they're running, and Clemson's front's not getting people up in the quarterback space, it's like standing out there in pass scale or even one-on-one drills in the summer, and you're letting the quarterback just work on his touch on those things. And it's impossible for the DB to be right. And then they're young on top of that, and they panic, and they got some interference calls. They got a couple when they didn't have to have them. They got a couple where they saved touchdowns with an interference. But, I mean, that's the basic answer. But the other answer is get some pressure. I mean, if you bring people in the gaps and so forth, and shoot a linebacker, and you got 4 of the best defensive linemen in the country, supposedly, the quarterback should be under pressure. And other than a few times, he was never under pressure.
7 penalties on the Clemson secondary, combination of holding and interference, and I think maybe there was one other typical call against the secondary. But they had 7 penalties themselves. I mean, Wake Forest gained, I think, an additional 120 yards just off a penalty, something like that, against the Tigers.
Absolutely.
Is that a Tampa
When
2?
you look at pass interference, we used to consider an explosive pass in college anything 15 yards or more.
Yeah.
Well, if you get pass interference, that's an explosive pass. I mean, so they had 6 of them. And when they didn't get them, then the ball was completed. So if you go back and look at all the other passing games, it was about 40-something yards. But guess what? Those plays counted. And I mean, it's 40 yards here, 25 yards there, pass interference. And so you're playing 80% of what you're doing is okay, but that one factor is killing you, and it never got cut off.
Yeah. Yeah, when they needed to make the play in the second overtime, Wiggins made it. Dabo said they were running a Tampa 2 on that particular coverage.
Well, you're in the red zone, too, so you don't have to cover the 40-yard route. So, I mean, Clemson had better players overall than Wake Forest. Their matchups out on the edges were not good. You expect the fact that Wake Forest doesn't get the 5 stars and 4 stars. Those big, tall wideouts are older guys. They're strong, they're tall, and against those freshman corners, it was a bad matchup talent-wise for Clemson, which on every other spot across the field, I'd say it was not a good matchup. So somebody else has got to win. Somebody else has got to take the pressure off those kids.
Chuck, have you had a chance to watch NC State and their quarterback, Devin Leary, and what they like to do and what he can do?
Well, I hadn't watched him this year. I watched him last year, and obviously, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I mean, the guy threw, I think, for 3,500 yards last year, and no, he's a guy that they better have the secondary straightened out because I think he's he's in the same category as Hartman, for sure. And they probably got, certainly just as good of people around him as Wake Forest did, maybe better people. So, obviously, this will be another test for Clemson.
The Clemson offense, and Brandon Streeter and his play calling and the way that's developing now that he's the full-time play caller. What are you seeing there? And do you think he's doing a good job the way he's running the offense at this point?
Oh, I do think, and I think that they've simplified from what they were a year ago. I think they really, especially the running game, I think is really, really simplified. I mean, they're only, they're just doing a few things, they probably threw the ball more the other day than they would like to. I think they would like, but they, other than the first play of the game, they didn't really run the ball very well. I think they've got to run the ball better. I don't think they want to go out there and throw the ball 40, 45 times a game. I don't think that's, that's not where they need to be. But the way the game the other day dictated that that's what they had to do. But no, I think, he's doing a good job. And like I said, I think they've simplified a little bit, which probably helps them.
Chalk Talk with Ellis Johnson, Chuck Reedy. Turn our attentions to South Carolina now, Chuck. And Gamecocks put up big offensive numbers, ran the ball like you want them to run the ball, and stuck with the run and really never got away from the run. We know Charlotte's defense wasn't very, very good at all. Swiss cheese out there, I guess you could say. But, as an offense, you need to do things to make yourself feel good, right? Isn't that part of kind of developing into a good offense, getting that chance to feel good about what you're doing?
Oh, confidence is a huge thing for an offensive football team. And, we talked about this last Wednesday, and they did exactly what we talked about. They didn't go out there and just try to throw it 40 times. They ran the football, and they got some confidence in running the ball. And, Marshawn Lloyd, we've been saying it all year, but he's a very good back. But he's not a guy that can carry the ball 7 times a game and be effective. He carried it 15 times. He needs to carry it 15 to 20 times a game, and give him a chance. And and they threw the ball, I think 25, 26 times counting Doty, and that's probably where they need to be. I don't think, I think I've said this. I don't think they'll win a game if they throw the ball over 30 times. I don't think that's what they are. And, and if they get into that kind of game, I think they're going to have a hard time.
When do you make a decision in a game that the running game's not working when you're playing a quality opponent? How long do you give it a try before you try and do something else and realize you're just going to have to throw it?
Well, you have to, you've got to be committed to running the football. And you've got to say, we're going to run it. Now, it's easy to go out there and you run it 4 or 5 times and you get stuffed and you say, oh, well, okay, we're going to just throw it all day. Well, that ain't any good either. I can tell you that. And so, I think you have to be balanced. You have to mix it up, but you have to always, and Spencer Rattler, the guy had a great day because, it wasn't all on him. Running the ball effectively. They were not against a good defensive football team and won't be this week either. But hopefully these things will give them some confidence and maybe give them some direction as to what kind of football team they are offensively. And, we've already seen what happens when they just try to go out there and throw it all day.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't very good. So, I know he said, well, they're not running it well. Well, you don't run it well if you don't believe in it, and you don't sell it, and you don't go out there and stick with it.
Ellis, what about the Gamecocks defensively against Charlotte? It was, it was kind of nip and tuck there early on, and they finally kind of shut them down there in the second half and played some pretty good defensive football. What'd you see out of the defense?
Yeah, the first half, they were on the way to a 300-plus yardage game and were doing some good things. But Charlotte's been pretty good on offense. They've shown some skills, some different things. move the ball on other people, but there's just a big difference in talent. However, Carolina still doesn't have all their guys on defense. And I mean, they're playing with one arm tied behind their back. They got 3 takeaways. I've been harping on that for 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's the most important thing is they got 3 takeaways, 3 good interceptions. And that's what I think some of the better players out in the secondary. And the best rush guy on the edge is gone for the season. They only gave up 79 yards rushing. And I looked to see if a bunch of it came off these college stats, which are misleading. It takes sacks off of rushing yardage. But I don't think they have 1 sack. So, you know, that they were good against the rush. But it was Charlotte. And you know, in Charlotte, you know, they've scored some points, but they've given up some points. And they're not what Carolina's going to face in 2 or 3 weeks and down through the stretch, you know, to find those 6 wins and get to a bowl game.
Yeah, hard to judge them off of that game, to be quite honest with you. Though you can look at some things like quarterback pressure and coverage in the secondary. What did you see there? Did they put sufficient pressure on the quarterback? Did you see decent amount of coverage in the secondary?
I thought first half, I thought it was kind of, you know, questionable. It was still feeling the way. And again, I don't mean to keep giving them an excuse, but they don't have all their guys. But it's starting, some of the guys that are having to step into those roles are starting to probably get a little better, more experienced. And then I thought obviously pressure was better, but their coverage was much better. And they haven't had real bad coverage through the season. I mean, it's just been either poor tackling one game or, you know, couldn't stop the run game one game. It's been a myriad of different things. But this game, obviously, they played really well in most every area on defense. But you have to look at who they're playing. But y'all mentioned it earlier. Confidence is a big deal. And when you come in that locker room to talk to a football team, it doesn't matter if they just play Green Bay or if they just play Charlotte. It's different handling a winning or a losing football team. It's frustrating to kids when they practice all week and they get beat. And when they practice all week and they win a game, it matters down the road, but it doesn't matter at that moment. So hopefully this will help them. And like Chuck said, they should get another one tomorrow. And they ought to give them a lot of lift. And maybe help them getting into this grind they get ready to hit with the SEC.
Had a coaching change in the ACC, Chuck, earlier this week. Georgia Tech firing their coach and their AD. So what direction do you think they will move in? I guess you got to hire an AD first before you hire your coach. But, you know, they got away from the Paul Johnson stuff, or tried to, and didn't have any success. So what do you think they do next?
Well, the thing that Paul Johnson did, you know, he gave them an identity that was different from everybody else, and you know, and they had great success with him. Georgia Tech is a tough. That's a tough job. You know, I don't know. I don't know what direction they go, but you know, they need to do something or find somebody that maybe, you know, Clemson is a great example. You know, I mean, if you can win at Wake Forest, you ought to be able to win at Georgia Tech, I guess is my point. And what he's done, he's built a program, and he's a little bit different offensively, and that's the direction they've got to go. Somebody like that, I think, you know, that and give them time. You know, I think it was obvious this wasn't going anywhere with Collins, but you know, you got to hire a guy and you got to give him time. You know, 3 or 4 years, which is what it is now, is not long enough. I mean, you know, if that were the case, there's a lot of guys that are in the Coaching Hall of Fame that would have never made it. I can tell you right, Frankie Beamer is a great example. You know, I think his 7th year at Virginia Tech, he won 2 ball games. But they gave him time, and he built a program. And nowadays, you know, there is no patience. And at a place like Georgia Tech, you better have it, or you're going to be making a change every 3 years.
Yeah, Ellis, what do you think about that situation?
Same thing. It's hard to add anything to what Chuck said, but I did come into a situation similar to where they've been playing the wishbone or the double slot bone. and I didn't like it. I wanted to get out of it. And you don't have a quarterback in the camp that can throw the ball. The offensive linemen don't know how to block pass rush. I mean, you don't have any receivers that know how to run a bona fide route tree. They all know how to run 9 routes and slants. It's difficult. And so, I mean, they did. I think they gave Jeff time, as Chuck said, but it wasn't any progress there. If there'd been a little bit of progress, they should have stuck with it. But it's just, guys, we talk about Nebraska, we talk about these type places 30, 40 years ago, Georgia, 50 years ago, maybe, Georgia Tech was a toast to the South, Bobby Dodd and all that. Sometimes they still think that's who they are. And facility-wise and all of that, the only thing they have going for them right now is location. And if they really want to put the money in it and get it to where it's competitive, I think they could probably do it because they're sitting in the middle of Georgia. But other than that, they've not made the commitment as an institution. And I just don't ever see it changing unless they do. They can bring in whatever coach they can go find.
Yeah. And they got the big dog 50 miles up the road that's not going away anytime soon. And that's the situation South Carolina faces here. I mean, they can bring in good players and improve themselves in a lot of different ways. But catching Clemson's going to be, quite a struggle for them for the next, I'd say, 10 or 15 years, as long as Sweeney is there.
Could be, but I mean, look, they've shown the last week or two, they're not invincible. They're not a dominant team like they have been. And I think that it's more about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing at your place to get that way? I think Clemson spends almost 38-40% of their budget on football because they feed the animal that brings home the groceries. And, it's bad business. If that's not the way you do it, if you're in the Southeast, football's king. If you don't feed football and you try to make every sport important, you ain't going to survive in that conference.
Chuck, I saw where Texas spent like $280,000 on a weekend official visits for the Manning kid, maybe another couple of guys that were in there. $280,000 for a weekend for an official visit. What could you have done back in the day with that kind of budget?
Well, I think that was our whole budget at Baylor. Might not have been that much, but that's a drop in the bucket.
Would that have gotten you Herschel back in the day?
Well, I don't know. Georgia was pretty strong, really.
They beat you to the car lot, huh?
Oh yeah.
How do you think Herschel's going to be if he's elected U.S. senator?
Well, I don't want to get
a hell of a lot better than what they got.
That's what I was going to say. That he's a hell of a lot better than Warnock, but he looked real good driving that black Trans Am that George got.
He sure did. All right, guys. Hey, listen, Georgia was playing the NIL game long ahead of a lot of other people, I guess you could say. So they just had another name for it back then. I don't know what you called it, but it was just under another name. You guys are great. We thank you as always. Enjoy your football all over the place. High school football and college starting up tomorrow night. Going to be a great weekend. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Hey, thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Ellis. Got to come with a nickname for Ellis. He won't tell us his high school nickname. Must have been badass. Must have been a really strong nickname that he had in high school. And Coach Reedy, Ground Chuck. That's a perfect nickname for Coach Reedy because he would rather run the football than eat. That's his thing. He wants to run the football. And I think the code name for him, Ground Chuck, was perfect. Okay, we hit the top of the hour break here on Sports Talk. Coming up, Mike Morgan on the move. Looking forward to hearing from him. And some comments from Dawn Staley coming up. We'll have recruiting for you as well. Take some of your phone calls if we can work them in hour number 2. We're back after this top of the hour break.
Before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Hurricane Ian is battering Florida at this hour after coming ashore along the Gulf Coast by Cayo Costa, an island near Fort Myers. Florida Chief Financial Officer and State Fire Marshal Jimmy Patronis says rescue teams that include medical personnel will go into hard-hit areas once it's safe.
As soon as the roadways are clear, they will literally be riding right behind DOT and forestry vehicles as the roads are clear, going from door to door, neighborhood to neighborhood, administering their life-saving services.
A coastal sheriff's office reported that it was already getting a significant number of calls from people trapped in their homes. More than 1 million Florida homes and businesses were without electricity. Encouraging early results from a study of a potential treatment for a devastating disease.
Japanese drug maker Eisai has released the results of a global study of almost 1,800 people with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. The study found its treatment reduced patient clinical decline by 27% when compared to a placebo after 18 months of the infused treatment. Patients were monitored using a scale that measures how they do in areas like memory and judgment, problem solving, and personal care. Rich Thomason reporting.
Stocks rallied on Wall Street to their first gain in more than a week as some calm returned to markets around the world Wednesday after the Bank of England moved forcefully to get a budding financial crisis there under control. The S&P 500 jumped 2% for its best day in 7 weeks to snap its longest losing streak since the coronavirus crash in February 2020. A drop in bond yields eased some of the pressure that's been choking Wall Street this year. The Dow was up by 548 points. The Nasdaq rose 222. More at townhall.com.
The secret to the market beat stock pick strategy is so simple, it is going to drive you crazy. Ask yourself, is this current market making you sick? Logging into your brokerage account day after day only to see lots of red? Well, let me tell you a secret. The best stocks to own are the companies that are consistently printing real profits year over year. The crazy thing is that it's even more effective in months like right now. Down markets means everything goes on sale, including these profit-printing machines. Want to stop playing the loser's game and guessing what the next hot stock will be? Market Beat is about to text you our new report. 7 stocks to buy and hold forever when you text the word profit to 68285. These companies print billions each year in profit and show no sign of slowing down. Get your free copy of 7 stocks to buy and hold forever. Just text profit to 68285. Text the word profit to 68285. Don't wait. This report is only available for a limited time. Text the word profit to 68285.
Standard message and data rates may apply. Please consult with your investment or tax professional.
Make way for the world's first all-electric passenger plane. The latest from the media line's Felice Friedson.
The first electric airplane designed and built to be an electric airliner flew its maiden flight on Tuesday, fueled by 2 850-horsepower engines driven by 900 kilowatt-hour batteries, the same as 15 standard electric vehicles. Plane called the Ellies rose to an altitude of 3,500 feet during its 8-minute voyage. With a range of 500 miles, it speeds up to 286 miles per hour. The leading-edge technology was pioneered by Aviation, an Israeli startup with investment from the U.S. and Singapore. Ynet News reports the plane's trials will be held in the United States to afford proximity to the FAA. I'm Felice Friedson, Town Hall News, Jerusalem.
News and analysis at themedialine.org and townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters.
We are back on Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network on this Wednesday night. If you're just joining us, it's good to have you with us. Phil Kornblut and Pat Daniel coming to you from the Dave & Buster's studios here in downtown Columbia. Mr. Great first hour. Just had Chuck Reedy, Ellis Johnson on for extended conversation. They were outstanding. And don't forget to eat, drink, play, and catch the big games all season long at Dave & Buster's in Greenville, in Columbia, and in Myrtle Beach. There's one near you. So get out and enjoy yourself. Enjoy the great food and the great times at Dave & Buster's. Yeah, Ellis and Chuck were outstanding. Good hearing from them. Coming up in a moment, Mike Morgan on the move. We'll have some recruiting for you as well. And some Dawn Staley comments coming up. Not about her basketball team, but talking about her support, of course, for Brittany Griner, and also her comments. The first one that she's made here in, she actually was asked about it when she was at Darlington for the Southern 500, but that was before BYU came out with their investigative report. So this is the first time she has spoken about canceling that BYU series since BYU said they investigated it and could find no wrongdoing by anybody or couldn't corroborate what the Duke volleyball player was alleging. So we'll let you hear what she had to say about all that coming up in just a little bit. But right now, we welcome in once again here on Sports Talk, man on the move, Mike Morgan, who was just in Indianapolis this past weekend for NFL action. Also had a college game last week. He had the Coastal Georgia State game. Mike is brought to you by Gibson Insurance, where former Gamecock baseball players Bo Mobley and Andrew Eister, they want you on their team for all your insurance needs. Cost-effective solutions for now and the long term are what they offer. Licensed with every insurance company in South Carolina. Give Bo and Andrew a call today at 803-605-0029, 803-605-0029. Morgan on the move. Mike Morgan joining us. So how'd you enjoy Indianapolis? Heck of a ball game you called the other day.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That is the beauty of the NFL. I know it's cliche, but you really don't know who's going to win on any given day. Indianapolis was reeling. Kansas City was dominating. And sure enough, I mean, it took a few things to happen. It took Kansas City making a lot of mistakes. It took some key plays from Indianapolis. And Matt Ryan, for all his shortcomings, and he's, certainly battling father time right now, but he's always been rather clutch. I think people forget that because the Falcons squandered away his Super Bowl, but that wasn't him.
Yeah.
It's not like he was throwing away picks or anything. But no, it was a lot of fun. That was my first ever trip to Indy, first game never called at Lucas Oil Stadium, which is a beautiful venue. The town is great and the support is great. Had a great time, did a little St. Elmo's, fine piece of meat there. Checked out the Indy 500 for the first time, and not the actual race, but the racetrack. And then went and shot some jumpers at Hinkle Fieldhouse, where they filmed Hoosiers, and of course the state championships were for many years in Indiana. Now the home of the Butler Bulldogs. So it's a heck of a 48 hours.
Yeah, you want us all to hate you, right? Is that the idea here? You just want everybody listening to hate you?
Look, you're at Dave & Buster's. When I lived in Columbia, I would have killed for a Dave & Buster's. I love skee ball. I love video games. I'm a kid at heart. We didn't have any of that stuff.
That's right. So let's dive into the football. Let's begin with an ACC showdown. Clemson, NC State. I bet you didn't know this. So Clemson, this will be their 27th top 10 game in the program's history. They're 14-12. This will be NC State's first game as a top 10 team playing another top 10 team. So they really get a chance to put their stamp on things if they can knock off Clemson and Death Valley.
Well, they do, or if they come up short, it'll be the same old NC State, right? Good, but never good enough for the big time. That's I've got a friend of mine who's a longtime NC State fan and graduate, and he'll say the same thing. It's like we can never get over the hump, are his words. And this is the kind of game, like if you want to prove that you belong, if you want to prove that you're ready for the next level, well, this is the kind of game you win. This is not the kind of game you come close or you just mess all over yourself. You got to go out there and actually finish. You got an NFL quarterback. You've got stability in your program. I think a lot of people thought Dave Doran would have been fired a while ago, but I give him credit. He's done some good things there. and they've got a good roster and a good team, and they've got momentum. Clemson, not exactly the same Clemson that we saw that when they were making, a half a dozen college football playoffs in a row. So it's about time. If you're NC State, it's put up or shut up, whether or not you're ready for the next level.
Well, as we talk about Clemson and the playoff, I mean, they beat NC State. That's their second hurdle. They cleared their first hurdle on the road in a win over a pretty good Wake Forest team. Florida State, looking at their numbers, they took care of business last weekend. They got a really good quarterback in Travis Jordan who can post some big numbers with his arm and his leg. It looks like, and they had 70,000, about 70,000. Looks like the folks down in Tallahassee are buying in now to what Norvell and his staff are doing with Florida State. That's what winning will do. Do you think Florida State really has it going on? Is this a mirage, or are they really someone to keep an eye on in the ACC?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's some stability there, and some of the residue from the Willie Taggart era has finally worn off, and it feels like it's Coach Norvell's program, and they're starting to show signs of stability and progress. That being said, I mean, I've always made the analogy with Florida State and Miami that they are terrific front runners. I mean, when everything is going right, boy, they play the part well, and they got all that swagger, and they look good, they sound good, they feel good. But the moment they lose a game, then all of a sudden it's a lot of the air comes out of the balloon. And what's been the problem with both those programs, they don't know how to handle it. They just go into a complete downward spiral as opposed to just like picking yourself up and going out and winning the next one. So everything is riding really good right now in Tallahassee. But I want to see how they do when they get that first loss, which is going to happen. And how do they respond? How does that locker room respond? Because in the past, the answer has not been really good.
Yeah, and then Miami. I mean, how shocked were you that they were beaten at home by Middle Tennessee State? I mean, Rick Stockstill and company just went in there and put a beating on them.
Did you send Chris Passaro a bouquet of flowers or maybe some chocolates? Congratulations to him, former longtime Gamecock associate AD and ticket man and every other title that he had there.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, it's the U, and if you look at the crowd, by the way, I mean that's thoroughly embarrassing. I get it, like the stadium is not really convenient to the campus, but the bigger problem is that the biggest Miami fans are not people that actually went to the school, and it's a lot of front running bandwagon fans from South Florida that were all in when they were winning titles in the 80s and 90s. And now it's like, yeah, I'll show up when they're playing Florida State or maybe Clemson. Other than that, I don't care. So it's pretty discouraging when you go out there as a player and you see that, not to make excuses because they completely laid an egg. And you got a quarterback that people were talking about as a Heisman Trophy candidate, as a first-round draft pick in Van Dyke, and he gets benched against the Blue Raiders. Think about that for a second. Put that at the bottom of the resume. It just goes to show you, I mean, every time people want to say the U is back, it's not back. It's not even close to being back. They have the ultimate hire in Cristobal, but they got a ways to go.
What about the Arkansas and A&M game? Arkansas got a chance to win, miss a makeable field goal. Something else that caught me of interest, though, is that game drew 63,000. I mean, had they played that game in College Station, they would have almost doubled that. And had they played it in Fayetteville, they'd have had about 10,000 more. I guess that's not important to them in this game. The idea of playing it at Jerry World is more important than filling up their own stadiums. And I guess they get enough money otherwise to make it worth their while.
Yeah. Well, I know where you're going with that, and that's still a sensitive subject for a lot of fans. I mean, heck, there's a lot of Florida and Georgia fans that don't want to play in Jacksonville anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Alabama fans that don't want to play week one in Atlanta. But clearly people smarter than us have done the calculus on it, and somehow they're making more money on it. And then you have the ancillary benefits of recruiting territories and everything else that comes with playing in something that's in a city that's not in your backyard, but still produces a ton of high school football talent. I guess it's worth it. I mean, I'm like you. I'd rather see these games played home and home, but it doesn't seem to me like the neutral site extravaganzas are ending anytime soon, because if you look at the contracts, we have more and more of these games scheduled years out.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So it does take a little bit off that Alabama-Arkansas game in Fayetteville. I was, after seeing Arkansas in person when they beat South Carolina and then watching them, continue until last weekend, I thought this team can give Alabama a go of it. Then again, they only lost to A&M by missing a field goal at the very end, so they could have won that game. Can they give Alabama a go of it this weekend?
First off, they should have won that game, because it wasn't just the field goal. They had a situation where KJ Jefferson at the goal line inexplicably lost the football at around the 1 or 2, and A&M got it and took it to the house. That was really the biggest play of the game. It shouldn't have even come down to a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas should have won that football game. No, I don't think Arkansas is in the class of Alabama, just like I don't think anybody in the East is in the class of Georgia. I think this is one of the most painfully predictable years in the SEC. Hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it. I think Alabama's very quietly and methodically doing what they need to do. There's no talk that this is the best Nick Saban team ever, because it's not, but it's still better than anybody else in the West. And I just can't imagine that Arkansas is going to have enough in the tank to pick themselves off the carpet and come back and beat a team like Alabama.
All right, let me close it out with South Carolina. It's going to be hard to read the Gamecocks here for a couple of weeks. They beat Charlotte, should have, and they did beat them like they should have. Now they got South Carolina State tomorrow night, FCS program that, we give a lot of respect to, but they don't match up with South Carolina. But what do you think a couple of wins, a couple of solid victories will do for them as they look forward to going to Kentucky a week from Saturday?
I can't say this enough. If and when Carolina beats SC State tomorrow night, they will be 3-2. That is exactly where they should be. That is exactly where Vegas thought they would be. I thought they would be. Deep down, you probably thought they'd be there too, Phil. I mean, they lost to two really good teams, right? Maybe the best team in Georgia and a really good Arkansas team on the road. That's nothing to hang your head over.
Mm-hmm.
And then they beat three teams they should have beat. The real season, the real defining moments of the season are coming up. It's coming up against Kentucky. It's coming up against Florida, Tennessee, Missouri. You should beat Vanderbilt. I mean, that's when you're going to figure out, did this program make strides in 2022? You're going to figure out, is Spencer Rattler the real deal? You're going to figure out, what is the soft underbelly of that defense. You're going to figure out a lot of questions that we quite frankly don't know the answers to yet. So have fun tomorrow night, take care of business, get to 3-2, and then start to figure out how do you make that run like you did a year ago when you shocked a lot of people getting 7 wins out of a roster that had no business picking up 7 wins.
All right, last thing. You're right there in Atlanta, so you hear everything. Georgia Tech, will they hire an AD first, and then who do you think that might be? And then do you think Massero has a shot at that if he's interested? And then coaching-wise, do you think Jamie Chadwell at Coastal, do you think he'll have some real legs in the race for that job there?
Well, first off, I'd have just as much luck and success predicting the next manager at the local Target on Two Notch. I have no idea who Georgia Tech's looking at for an AD. I've been in Atlanta since 2010. They've already gone through 3 athletic directors in that time. I just don't know. It's a unique place. Once they get that guy, there's going to be a lot of pressure. First of all, there's a lot of national media that wants to see Deion get a Power 5 job.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be pushing for it in their own clever and unique way. And then you're going to have some local community people in Atlanta pull for Deion. And then if you want to just, it's a little bit gimmicky, but if you hire Deion, you're going to make some waves that Georgia Tech hasn't made. Now, if Deion's not on the table, Chadwell would be an excellent choice. Could you get a Bill O'Brien? I have a feeling he's going to be a prime candidate for some of the bigger jobs already out there. I don't know. Here's what I do know. Anybody I've talked to in the coaching profession will tell you Georgia Tech has unique challenges that other schools just do not have academically. and that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, and that might scare away some candidates.
As always, Mike, we greatly appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend, your football weekend, lots of it, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, guys. Have to play some skee ball for me.
You got
Aim
it.
for the middle, Phil. Get the 5-0. Get the 50.
I usually like to bank it off the top and try and, hit the top of the cover there and bank it in that way. You don't like that strategy?
No, that's okay. Hey,
Okay.
look, you do you. If you want to play it off the window, it worked for Tim Duncan for many, many years.
I just wait for, I wait for red to come up 7 or 8 times and that's a different game.
Yeah, no, that's a different one, and that's a different one entirely. Air hockey, they get some air, get you in the game doing some air hockey.
See, what people don't know is Morgan has a secret recipe for winning at roulette. So, but we'll keep it a secret.
I did for 3 years in Omaha, and then it went completely in the crapper.
All right, my man. Talk to you next week.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Mike Morgan. Morgan on the move here on Sports Talk. Appreciate Mike being with us tonight. Great stuff from him. As always, going to hit the break here on Sports Talk. We'll come back with more. Got some recruiting coming your way. And comments from Dawn Staley. Jamie Chadwell met with the media as well today. I get that to you tonight. If not, we'll get it to you tomorrow night. Back after this break here on Sports Talk.
South Carolina's taste buds have spoken, and they're asking for beef. There are more than 7,800 farms raising cattle from pasture to plate in the Palmetto State. So whether it's steaks on the grill before the big game, sirloin medallions plated for date night, or burgers with the family, make sure beef is a part of your playbook this football season. Smoked, grilled, and slow roasted. Find the best way to enjoy your beef at sccattle.org. Beef, it's what's for dinner in South Carolina. Funded by the South Carolina Beef Council, part of the Beef Checkoff Program.
Show your team pride wherever you go with Founders Federal Credit Union's collegiate debit cards. Get your University of South Carolina and Clemson University debit cards at any Founders office or by calling 1-800-845-1614. Plus, our debit cards are digital wallet ready, so you can pay however you please. Not a member? Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
Life. It has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
Hey folks, it's Mike Morgan for Gibson Insurance. Former Gamecock player Bo Mobley and former coach Stuart Lake want you on their team for all your insurance needs. Now, cost-effective solutions is what they're all about for the now and for the long term. They're licensed with every insurance company in the state. They've got offices in Columbia, Greenville, and Sumter. But if you're listening right now, let me direct you to call Bo and Stu today at 803-605-0029. That's 803-605-0029. Let my good friends take great care of you.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk on this busy Wednesday night. You know, from time to time here on the program, we like to take a moment to give back to the people of South Carolina. With that in mind, we welcome in State Treasurer Curtis Loftus to Sports Talk once again. Good evening, Mr. Treasurer. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
We are doing great. We're glad to get you on here because it's September and 529 month is running short and about to come to an end. We want to remind everybody to jump into that program if they haven't already.
Yes, sir. If you hear me rapping on the windows, I've got 4 bucks in my backyard. They come up and graze every evening about this time. When they get close to my good shrubs, I have to run them off.
There you go. A shotgun would help as well, but you don't strike me as a shotgun type.
Not for 4 little fellas like this.
No.
529 months. I really do appreciate your time. We'll be quick because I know you got lots of sports to talk about. It's just a smart, easy way to save for college. The General Assembly has set this thing up so you can beat the tax man 3 different times. And you set the fund up, which takes about 25, 30 minutes to do. You make a contribution, and every contribution has a state tax deduction attached to it. You can't beat that. The money grows inside state and federal tax free, just like a 401k. And then you pull it out for education expenses, that's tax free again. So you beat that man 3 times, and in the investing world, that is a home run.
No question about that. Everybody loves getting something past the tax man, the revenuer, I guess, as we call them. So, and the process, as you've said before, people might think, well, I'd like to do it, but man, I don't have the time to sit down and do all this stuff. I mean, it's a very simple process, right? Would not take much of your time.
When we built the computer system, I said, make it idiot proof, and I will be the idiot that tests it. And if I can do it, I can promise you anybody can do it. You just go to futurescholar.com, futurescholar.com. Takes about 30 minutes. There are no fees. You don't have to put money in the same day. It's really flexible. You get to use it the way you want to. And if for some reason you can't get the system to work for you, there's an 800 number. It's answered here in America. You'll understand everything that's said, and they're very well trained. They'll help you.
So what kind of money are we talking about here that a person should be donating to make it worth their while so that, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, their child or their grandchild will have their college education paid for?
Well, all the theories say the first thing you want to do is start as soon as you can. Yesterday would have been better than today because it's just the length of time you have the money in there. Even if you don't have your money now, if you just put $5 or $10 a month in there, that starts it going. Then your grandma and your mom, your dad, your cousins, your sisters, they'll stop buying little presents for the kids, and they start making those checks to the fund. And what you find is it really starts to grow. And then in 10 or 15 years, when the kid's ready to go to college, sometimes 20 years before they need it, because they may have enough money for the first year or two, you just never know how long you have. But people start adding. I won't go to Walmart and buy a present. I'm just not going to do it. I'm old, fat, and grumpy, and that time of my life is gone. So instead of going and buying a present and paying sales tax, I sit at home and I can write a check, or I can do it electronically from the website. And I can make that payment, get that tax deduction, and know that the $100 I gave the kid or $50 or whatever, that's going to turn into a whole lot more money in 15 or 18 years. And it'll help them get through college or through tech school or through trade school or community college. It also is now it's allowed to be used for K through 12 private school fees. So if your kid goes to a secular or a Christian school, you can use this for tuition.
Fantastic. Anywhere you want to go to get your education, you can apply this. One more time before we let you go, what's the website for folks to go to get signed up and get started?
Futurescholar.com, futurescholar.com.
That's easy enough. Futurescholar.com. I can remember that.
Thank you, Phil. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Yes, sir. You have yourself a great weekend. Yeah, we'll talk to you again. Thank you. All right, Curtis Loftus, the state treasurer. Well, we have nothing but big people on this program. State treasurers, governors, attorney generals, football coaches. Speaking of football coaches, we got one coming up after the break. Benedict coach Chinnis Berry joins us live here on Sports Talk. They are off to a great start. We'll find out about the Tigers and what's ahead for them coming up after the break here on Sports Talk, plus recruiting. Comments from Dawn Staley coming up as well. We'll be back after the break.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Staying dry but windy with a low of 54. Tomorrow, cloudy and breezy with a high of 72. The bad weather arrives on Friday with a total rainout. Gusty winds and a chance for severe weather. The conditions from the hurricane brings heavy rain on Saturday and into Sunday. A very wet 3-day period. Weekend highs in the low 70s. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Honey, did you see the gas prices as you drove home from work today?
I did. They are getting ridiculous.
Good thing for us, we don't have to go anywhere to get our medicine.
That's right. Ever since we switched to True Pharmacy, they have delivered all of our medicine for free.
Not only that, every time we buy anything at True Pharmacy, including our prescriptions, we get loyalty points.
Aren't those great? We get to use our loyalty points to buy other over-the-counter items.
Yes, this month I used them for our multivitamins.
I sure am glad we switched to True Pharmacy. True Pharmacy, 2 locations to serve you, West Columbia and Columbia on Divine.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting Hurricane Ian, one of the most powerful storms ever recorded in the U.S., swamped southwest Florida on Wednesday, flooding streets and buildings, knocking out power to over 1 million people and threatening catastrophic damage further inland. The Coastal Sheriff's Office reported that it was getting many calls from people trapped in homes. The Hurricane Center struck near Cayo Costa, a protected barrier island just west of heavily populated Fort Myers. President Biden sought out a deceased congresswoman during remarks at a hunger conference Wednesday. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre later said Representative Jackie Walorski was top of his mind to Biden when he called out, "Where's Jackie?" Jean-Pierre did not acknowledge that Biden had misspoken during his remarks at the White House conference on hunger. This is SRN News.
I'm already a big fan of Medicare Blueprint. Tim and his team saved me several $1,000s. They took a look at my health insurance. They helped me get the best possible plan. But not long ago, I reached out when we had a crisis. The big bad insurance company out of nowhere just canceled mom's medicine for her multiple sclerosis. No warning, 30 years, same med, and just like that, gone. Here's the good news. Medicare Blueprint doesn't work for the insurance companies. They work for you. They're local. Imagine me trying to get this fixed, calling some national toll-free number. Outsourced operators never talk to the same person twice. Medicare Blueprint went to work, helped me get mom's meds back, and how's this? Even less expensively than we were paying before. Incredible customer service and local. What a great formula. Oh, and it cost me nothing for their services. Nothing. Whether you're on Medicare or not, my mom is, I'm not. Medicare Blueprint helped both of us. Online, it's MedicareBlueprint.com or call them 708-7398. That's 708-7398.
Attention listeners, con artists have many tricks for stealing your money, but the AARP Fraud Watch Network is here to help you protect yourself and your family. We give you the tools you need to spot and avoid scams. So listen for the AARP Fraud Watch Network alerts. Use our scam tracking map to see the latest scams and sign up for prevention tips and alerts from law enforcement. To learn how to outsmart con artists before they strike, visit aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network.
Are you worn out from wall-to-wall political talk? Instead of hearing more about the stuff in Washington that's mostly out of your control, I'll give you the tools to actually take control of your money and your life. Dave Ramsey here. Join me right here on The Point. I'm live and taking your calls weekdays at 2 p.m. I'll teach you how to get on a written plan that actually works, get out of debt, and build wealth. Weekdays at 2 p.m. The Dave Ramsey Show at 100.7 The Point.
Hey, it's the Cigar Militia. We want to thank the Midlands for a wonderful first year. Thank you for helping us grow. We had no idea we had so many good friends out there. One thing I love about the cigar culture is we all have our favorite brands, but we're also willing to try new ones too. Come in and get your old standby or have one of our knowledgeable staff members walk you through the humidor to your new favorite. We're at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard in the same plaza as the Melting Pot Restaurant.
This is Roger Metz, host of Woods and Water, South Carolina. We often hear shop local. With deer hunters, you can do just that at Verdon's Farm and Garden Center in Lawrence, South Carolina.
Do you need a new deer stand, trail camera, or mineral block? They have all that and more.
Need seed? Plant their widely sold Verdon's Wildlife Mix, a 10-seed blend, or maybe just grab a couple of bags of oats.
They have shelled corn all year long and bring in cob corn during deer season.
Deer hunters, you can get all this and more at Verdon's Farm and Garden Center on Highway 221 in Lawrence, South Carolina, just a few miles off the interstate.
So shop local at Verdon's and please tell them that Woods and Water SC sent you.
Back we are, Sports Talk Media Network. From the Dave and Buster studios here in downtown Columbia. Good to have you with us on this Wednesday night. Been a very busy show. Mike Morgan was with us a little while ago. We had Chalk Talk, great Chalk Talk session with Coach Ellis Johnson, Coach Chuck Reedy. And I actually referred to myself as a coordinator. Did you catch that, Pat, when I mentioned the three of us, the three coordinators, and how we would think about things and how we would explain things that other people didn't understand? That's right. I'm a coordinator just like they were. Recruiting is coming up. Some comments from Dawn Staley from her meeting with the media today. But, we like to catch up with coaches who are having really good seasons. And you might not be aware that Benedict College right here in Columbia is 4-0, nationally ranked in the HBCU polls again this week, coming off a win over Kentucky State, improving their record to 4-0. Best start ever for the Tigers. We have Coach Chennis Berry with us right now here on Sports Talk. Coach, good to have you with us. How are you?
Hey, man. How you doing today, man? All is well.
We're doing fine. How's that voice holding up?
Hanging in there the best I can, man.
Well, you don't have much to yell about. Your team is 4-0.
Hey, man, God is good, man. Very, very grateful. Young men are playing hard. Coaches are coaching hard, and we're finding a way to go 1-0 every week.
Well, that's what you told us in the preseason when we met with you on the tour. But you talked about your quarterback back then, and he's played well for you. You're scoring a lot of points. You're not giving up too many points. You've got the perfect combination going right now.
And I'll tell you what, the guys, like I say, they're 100% bought into what we're doing, on and off the field. And we're starting to benefit and reap the fruits of our labor.
What do you like most about the way your team on the offensive side, averaging 34 a game? What are you liking most about how they are executing and doing what you're asking of them?
Well, everything starts with the offensive line. And, most importantly, those guys are starting to gel together, and they're playing together as one. We're very, very excited about them. And we're still playing a two-quarterback system with Eric Phoenix and John Lampley. And those guys have really been helping each other and really been moving our offense the right way, because the most important thing that we always talk about with our quarterbacks is, finding a way to manage the offense. They have enough playmakers around them that all they have to do is manage it and not turn over the football. So we've been great thus far this year. Either one of our quarterbacks have thrown an interception thus far. So we're super excited about that.
Got to believe, too, you're happy with the balance. You're averaging about 165 rushing, 215 passing. Is that kind of what you were seeking with this offense?
Absolutely, man. We're always seeking balance. Balance is the number one key. And we've blessed to have two really, really good freshman running backs that are really doing an amazing job running the football. And like I say, it starts with those big guys up front. And then to have the ability to be able to stretch the field vertically with those guys on the perimeter gives yourself a chance to win football games.
I imagine one thing that has to be a concern, just looking at your stats, you're getting to the red zone 19 times, but 8 times you did not come away with touchdowns, 11 of 19 touchdowns to red zone trips. I imagine you'd like to see that percentage up a little bit.
We've really been focusing on that, and you're exactly right. We've been focusing on once we get down there, because we have a freshman kicker, and we can't guarantee that we're always going to be, on point with field goals. So we got to, do a really good job once we get down there. We got to come away with touchdowns. So we've really been working hard at that the last couple of weeks.
What's happening when you get down there that's sometimes stalling your drives?
Well, a lot of times it's mental errors, man. It's not the physical part. It's, a guy. Offense, all it takes is one guy not to be locked in, make a mental error, and it kind of screws up the whole play. But, we're getting guys to understand the urgency once we get in that red zone, that everybody's got to be doing their 111. And once the guys buy into that, I think we'll be heading the right direction.
Visiting with Coach Chennis Berry from Benedict. Now, you're only giving up 8.5 points a game. So, you have been a lockdown defense thus far. In your 4 games, most points you've given up in any one game is 14. You've got 1 shutout. So you're playing great defense. Are you just overwhelming teams right now with your defense?
Man, kudos out to my defensive staff, Coach O'Daffur and my entire defensive staff. They worked extremely hard. Like I tell them all the time, it helps to have players. And we've really done a really good job in recruiting on that side of the ball, and trying to get us some depth. But it all starts with those big guys up front, just like it starts with the big guys up front on the offensive line. You got to have a good defensive line, and that's really where we're causing a lot of chaos against opposing teams, is because our front is really playing some good ball right now. Those guys are, very, very disruptive, and they've been doing a really good job of winning at the line of scrimmage. So, you feel like if you can do that and be good on the O-line, D-line, you got a chance to win football games. And, we're very experienced in our secondary. We're too deep. Pretty good back there in the back end. So those guys have been doing a good job of just keeping everything in front of them. And our guys have been really focusing on winning on first down. Our third down defense has been really, really well. But if you can win on first down and get teams behind the sticks, you have to like your chances on third down to get off the field. So our defense has been doing a really, really good job of that. And I'm very, very proud of the direction they're taking at this moment.
Well, you mentioned your secondary. You gave up 7 passing yards last week. 7. 1, 2, 3. That's Mickey Mantle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, was that a combination of y'all's good play and the offense that Kentucky State ran, or how did you hold them to 7 yards passing?
Well, we faced a dynamic triple option offense.
Okay.
I don't think they had but 2 pass attempts.
Okay.
And then, they just did a really good job defense. So they've been playing, regardless of teams is trying to pass the ball or not, they've been really playing some really good pass defense. But a lot of that starts with pressure up front. If you can rush 4 and get home with 4 and cause some chaos, man, it helps the back end do a very good job on their end as well.
So looking ahead to what's coming up for you, as I mentioned, you're off to a 4-0 start. You got now you played 3 of your first 4 at home, so that means eventually that's going to kind of turn around on you. You're going to hit some road games coming up here. But how do you feel about what's coming up based on the way you guys have been playing?
Well, like you say, man, we've been at home. We've been fortunate, and we say we want to play well in the jungle at Charlie Johnson Stadium. So we've been doing that, taking care of home. But, we're going to have an opportunity to go on the road. We took one road trip already to Lane College, which is in Jackson, Tennessee. So that was a 10-hour ride. We were able to come away from that one with a win. And now we're going to get ready to play Fort Valley State University. And they're 4-0 right now as well. We'll be going down. We'll be leaving on Friday, headed to Fort Valley, Georgia, to play a good Fort Valley team on this upcoming Saturday. So we're excited. Guys are having a great week of practice, and we're excited about the challenge.
Yeah, how's it looking weather-wise? I know the storm's going to be coming up through South Georgia, and I guess South Georgia makes its way up from Florida. Is that going to cause you guys any problems?
Well, we've been doing a good job of tracking the storm, and our administrations on both ends, in terms of Benedict as well as Fort Valley, has been really been watching it. And as of right now, we're going to continue to play on Saturday, but they have a contingency plan in place just in case the weather stays there. But right now, we're planning on kicking off on Saturday at 2:00, and if things change, we'll be ready for it. But we're going to stay ready, so we don't have to get ready.
Well, good luck to you. Congratulations on the great start, 4-0. That's a first in school history. I know you want to continue to build on that and move up in those polls and get yourself in position to make a postseason appearance and a postseason run. So we'll be talking to you again, and we thank you for joining us tonight.
And I always appreciate coming on with you, man. You really do a great job, man, and I'm just grateful that you take time out to talk about Benedict College football.
Well, I snuck in for one of your games, that Thursday night game. I made it over there right at halftime, enjoyed the band and the halftime stuff, and watched your second half as you put away Savannah State. It was a lot of fun. I encourage folks to get out and support your program.
I appreciate it, man. I really do. God bless you, man.
Thank you, Coach. Good talking to you. All right, that's Coach Chennis Berry from over at Benedict College, and they're having a great season. Like I said, they are 4-0, going to Fort Valley State this weekend, 2:00 kickoff. Then they host Miles the following week at 2:00, and then on the road to Albany State, and then to Morehouse College. So they got some road games coming up, kind of equal things up on this schedule. They've had 3 of their first 4 games at home thus far. Oh, some good news. Ian, not our former intern, the Hall of Famer Ian Maripol, but Ian the Hurricane, downgraded to a Cat 3. That's good. Keep downgraded. Become nothing but a light sprinkle by the time you get to South Carolina. Hit the break. Be right back.
I'm State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. People often ask me, when should I start saving for college? And I always tell them, start today. September is College Savings Month, a great time to start saving for your child's education. Future Scholar makes it easy to open and manage your account online, and the plan offers options and benefits you won't find with a regular savings or investment account. So make this the month you go to futurescholar.com and see why it's the smart, easy way to save for college. Futurescholar.com.
When your day calls for some winning, why not watch your favorite football team at Dave & Buster's? We've got massive HD TVs and hundreds of the hottest new games. Sip from our chef-crafted cocktail menu with exclusive drinks such as the Strawberry Watermelon Margarita or Dangerous Waters. Cheer on the team with Cantina Nachos or wings featuring one of our 12 wing flavors. When your day calls for some winning, it's time for Dave & Buster's, where you can watch the games and play the games. Locations in Greenville, Columbia, and Myrtle Beach.
If you're looking to stay hydrated this summer, turn toward a southern favorite, sweet South Carolina watermelons. One slice is equivalent to a glass of water and is just as effective as sports drinks for hydration. If you don't believe us, you can ask the Palmetto State's top football teams. The SC Watermelon Association will be serving up slices after summer practice to keep our teams fueled and hydrated. Visit scwatermelon.org for all the details and look for ripe South Carolina watermelons in your hometown.
We're with Major Billy Downer of DNR Major. It's always a good time for folks to remember to get those licenses renewed.
Doesn't matter what time of the year, it's always a season in, whether it's fishing or hunting. Make sure to check your licenses, make sure they're up to date. If you need a hunting or fishing license, you may go to www.dnr.sc.gov to purchase your license online or to any local licensed vendor in your local area.
And don't forget to join us for SC Wild from DNR with Major Billy Downer on Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Your home is where your memories live. It's where you laugh and where you love. We understand the importance of the valuables under your roof, tangible and intangible alike. So no matter what's around the corner, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for nearly 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at scfbins.com.
Call me, Alex Satterfield, at 803-749-9171 for all of your Midlands insurance needs.
It is time for the recruiting report tonight here on Sports Talk. It is brought to you by our good friends at Seawells, very best in the catering business. The folks at Seawells, they've been doing the catering thing going on about 80 years, a little bit longer than most of us have been around. In fact, Mrs. Seawells is still over there kicking around, but the rest of them, they haven't been around that long, but they're veterans. I call them veterans of the catering business, and they do it better than anybody else. Just give them a call. You got something coming up, a big party, a wedding reception, a corporate outing, maybe an awards banquet. You know, they can host at their facility or they'll come to you. Phone number 803-771-7385. Online at SeawellsCateringSC.com. And, of course, tomorrow, a great day to get over to Seawells before the ball game. They'll have their daily luncheon buffet, I'm assuming. Daily luncheon buffet tomorrow, 11 till 2 o'clock. And, of course, they'll have a great spread for you. It's only $13, and you can relax and enjoy a great meal. And you can look across Rosewood Drive, and you can see the Rockets, and you can see Williams-Brice Stadium. You can stand there and eat your fried chicken and dribble some grease on your shirt and tear up while looking at Williams-Brice Stadium for you Gamecock fans. What a great moment. Seawell's chicken, grease on the shirt, and Williams-Brice Stadium in the foreground. It's a great moment. And it only happens at one place, and that's at Seawells. All right, so we go to the recruiting report. 2024 receiver safety Channing Goodwin of Charlotte, 6'1", 165. And what a lineage he has in football. His dad is Jonathan Goodwin. His uncle is Harold Goodwin. Stars at Lower Richland, stars at Michigan, standouts in the NFL. In fact, his uncle is, I think, the assistant head coach and running game coordinator for the Bucs. His mom is from Saluda and is a USC grad. So he's got ties to the area, ties to USC. In fact, had he stayed in the Columbia area, he would have gone to Dutch Fork High School before the family moved to Charlotte. So South Carolina with the hometown ties are in there. Torian Gray likes him for like a safety. He plays safety and receiver. They offered him after seeing him on Friday night. The Gamecocks offered him. And so now they're factors with him. And he had 42 catches last season, 690 yards, 8 touchdowns. So far this year, 23 for 286 and 3 scores. He'll play either position in college. He says he just wants to play where he can get on the field early. He likes what Shane Beamer's doing, sees the progress they're making. He was in Williams-Brice last season for Vandy in Florida. He also went there as a youngster for a game, and the Gamecocks won, so he says he's never seen them lose in person. He feels like he's their good luck charm. This season, he's been to games at NC State and Michigan. He might go to Kentucky this weekend. He's got Boston College, Maryland, Missouri, Western Kentucky, Duke, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Pitt, Louisville, and Bowling Green as other offers. USC commitment, defensive end Montague Rames of Manning, formerly of Sumter, set his official to USC for November 18th. USC Clemson target, 24 defensive tackle Heaven Brown Schuler of Atlanta, offered by Oregon. He was at Tennessee last weekend. 24 receiver safety KJ Bolden of Buford, Georgia, and 24 offensive tackle Jake Guarnera of Ponte Vedra, Florida, plan to be at Clemson Saturday. 25 athlete Chanston Crosby of Bamberg Earhart plans to be at USC for SC State tomorrow night. USC offered 2026 receiver DB Aaron Gregory of Augusta. That's recruiting for tonight. Now, this afternoon, Dawn Staley met with the media after practice, talked about her team and things happening with them and looking forward to the upcoming season. She also was asked a couple of non-X's and O's questions dealing with Brittany Griner and also the BYU situation. We pick it up with her answer to the question about why she supports Brittany Griner's situation.
I mean, I know Brittany. I've known Brittany for the past 10 years, and I know her heart. I know who she is as a person, and she's a human being. She's an American over in Russia at the worst time that anybody can be in Russia. Why wouldn't I want to send prayers her way and just make sure that she's in a good headspace? Because I know they're up days and down days and, days in which you lose hope. I just want her to continue to have hope that people are voicing their thoughts and their prayers on her behalf to keep her in a great space. Because we are continuing to fight to get her home. And I know the people that are working behind the scenes to make it happen, I know they're working. The foot soldiers and all of us need to continue to do that just so Brittany knows that we're not thinking about her. And that's everybody. I know Brittany. Like, I know her personally. So I want everybody that's locked up abroad that's an American to come home. So Brittany is probably the best way for another prisoner or several prisoners to get home, just because of her notoriety and her celebrity.
You've spoken your mind and shared your opinion, but do you feel like people are, for better or worse, listening more now? Like that platform's been elevated since the national championship. Just that, I mean, you've never been shy. You've always, spoken from your heart, but that people would just seem to be listening more now, and the power of that position for you.
Yeah, people are listening. People of all walks of life are listening. So good and bad, but it just comes with the territory. I'm not doing anything that I really haven't done. It's just more eyes and ears are on our program now because of our success. So, I'm just going to keep doing what I've done, what's on my heart to do.
And you've been using that for good as well. Out in the community here, just as much as, speaking for those that just don't have a voice everywhere.
I mean, that's the way it's supposed to happen. Like, if you have a voice, then you should use it for the voiceless. I mean, I don't condemn anybody. I don't try to hurt anybody. I use it in order to benefit other people. And I'll continue to do that. I've become more of my mother's child than ever. So I'm becoming more of my mom-like. And if people don't like it, I can't help that.
Did you ever communicate any more with BYU after all that went down, as far as
what you found and what they announced for their own investigation? Did you ever exchange any information with them?
I exchange information with BYU and Duke, and I still come with the same conclusion as a statement that we put out. We're just gonna have to agree to disagree agreeably in this instance.
So you feel like your own investigation uncovered some information that theirs apparently did not.
Well, anything that has come out of the Duke side of it, that's what they came out with. Whatever comes out from the BYU side of it, that's their side of it. There isn't, there are different perspectives on it, and we all got a perspective. Whether you like it or not is a perspective, and we choose to go with what we believe is the truth for us, and we're just gonna have to just continue down that road.
Their investigation turned up no evidence of audio, video, nobody in the stands. They interviewed Duke players. Nobody supports what is alleged. And the question is, how can you go against that?
Did the young lady come out and say that she apologized for hearing something wrong? Did she come out and say that yet?
I haven't seen that.
Okay, that's her story. So that's what she's sticking with. Until she comes out and says that, then I'll be the first to apologize. I'll be the first to say I'm wrong, but that has yet to come out. So that's what I'm sticking with.
All right, Dawn Staley. So in the case of this BYU deal, it's simple then. It's just very simple. She believes what the Duke volleyball player is alleging, and unless the Duke volleyball player recants the allegations, that's what she's going to go with. Doesn't matter what BYU investigates and reports. That's irrelevant, in her opinion. Her opinion apparently is based strictly on the allegations by the Duke volleyball player. So you can agree with her position on that, or you can disagree. Am I reading that right, Pat? I don't think I'm misreading that if you go by what she said. You don't have to agree with me. If you disagree, say so. But she said unless the girl comes out and apologizes, then there's no reason for her to change her view of it.
No, I'm struggling with this. I'll be honest. I think you are reading that correctly. I did perk up a little bit there, and correct me if I'm wrong, when she said I'm not condemning anybody. Well, has she not condemned BYU and their entire fan base by canceling this game? Maybe I'm reading that wrong, but that was kind of the way I took it. And on a little less serious, more tongue-in-cheek manner, I do find it a little interesting that they canceled a game with BYU, who went 26-4 last year, won their conference, and is a projected top 12 team this season, and replaced them with East Tennessee State, who went 6-22 last year, lost a bulk of their starters, and is expected to be dead last in their conference. Seems a little interesting.
Well, I don't think they don't run from anybody. I don't think they're running from BYU. And look, she makes the schedule. She's the head coach. In basketball, it's different than football. Football's handled by the ADs and TV people. Basketball coaches pretty much make their own schedule. So she makes the schedule. And if it was a historical thing, she never would have scheduled BYU, right? Certainly she knew the history of BYU and their issues with racist actions on their campus and towards students. It's 81% white campus, Mormon campus, and they've had their problems. They're trying to do better, according to their officials. They're trying to eradicate all of that and make it a more comfortable place for everybody to exist. But certainly, if you had known that and that was a concern, you would never have scheduled them to begin with. So it has to be based, the way I see it, has to be based on this incident. And, Dawn Staley is going to base her decision on the claims of the player, which cannot be corroborated by an investigation at BYU.
I do respect her standing her ground, though. I want to make sure that clear. She's standing her ground, and got to respect that.
She stands her ground. There's no question about it. Okay, we're out of here. We'll see you tomorrow night right here on Sports Talk.